Thank you very much, everybody. So I'm gonna start and then let Neil, my colleague Neil as well, discuss a little bit our project so far at MSSI Materials, as we like to call our team. So the vision of our team has been to work in highly transdisciplinary research at McGill, meaning bringing a lot of different folks around the table, a lot of different students and postdocs from over 6 faculties and many more units, and try to work together in this holistic way onto problems that would lead to the design, development, evaluation of use of sustainable materials. And we'll see some examples that we developed, but we really try to develop a framework that could be applied to virtually any product, any material, and eventually use this in order to address some of the grand challenges of the 21st century around the topic of sustainability. So we have approached our work by identifying 3 axes. One is the design and synthesis of new materials that can substitute others existing so that they will be cleaner and safer to meet pressing societal needs. We also want to develop massive understanding of the risk associated with certain chemicals by developing better assessment, in particular for toxicity and ecotoxicity. And finally, have a stakeholder-driven approach where we interact with a lot of stakeholders around there to try to push our discoveries towards commercialization and application. So we have assembled a team, and you can see here that there's a bunch of people around the table that we have been working with. We've tried to represent diversity in so many different ways, topical, obviously, but also having some female colleagues, people from different groups. And we've assembled a number of different expertise as well along this road. This is really where I think this project has been unique, and one that we would not have been able to handle with classic funding resources, because we had the freedom to really pause and say, what are the problems that we want to tackle? Who do we need to tackle them? And then who do we want to have around the table to do that? And that really took, I think it really happened because we had the luxury of not having to always go for the easy answer, but really sitting together and trying to think about those sustainability problems in a completely innovative way. One thing that's important is also that we put postdocs and students, we call them HQP, highly qualified personnel. This is kind of a little gimmick that we have amongst ourselves, but this is really what we really wanted to do, is to put the students and postdoc at the heart of everything that we did. And a lot of the way we've been functioning has been to put the student and the postdoc at the center of the effort, in order to build those links and in order to enable the research really effectively. And this has turned out to be a great success, and this is really something that we were particularly proud of. And what this allowed us to do is to actually build networks and connection amongst the students that were independent of the actually PI researchers as well, which is a level that has been incredibly powerful in the way we work. So we have funded over 20 students via our effort, and we have had at all times in the excess of 40 HQPs that were working around the topics that I'm going to, and Neil is going to present as well in the next few minutes. And with this real force that they're represented, they've been putting together what we called an HQP program. So really, they've designed workshops and seminars and things that were of interest for themselves, developing soft skills, developing technical skills, and they've really done this independently. So I think this has been a tremendous success in the program. And here are some of the events that happened where we had students. We've run things like 3-minute thesis presentation types for students. We've had poster sessions, but also students met independently of us in order to develop these workshops and soft skills trainings. So the way that we've chosen research topics, again, we can see them really as case studies more than actually trying to address everything. We wanted on a few selected topics to really develop the way of thinking that lies onto this interdisciplinarity as well as applicability to sustainability. And we did this by focusing on energy materials and nanomaterials. So I'm going to show you a bit of the work that we did in this area, and then I'll pass on to Neil for more. So our first project is one centered on Q dots. So Q dots are a type of material that are used for making high-end electronics, in particular. Some new screens right now contain Q dots because it makes the image sharper. But there are lots of questions both on how to make these materials in a greener way, and also what happens to these materials after their lives, and how do they interact with the environment and with humans. So this is the team that we've assembled to study this problem, and we've had great success. So you can see some of the students that have worked in this area. They're highlighted here in these little boxes. So here are the names of the folks that we've worked with and who've developed tremendous expertise at the intersection of different topical areas. They've worked also at the intersection of these different problems, giving them a very holistic approach to the problem. And we currently have published or are about to submit 6 research articles on this discovery in high-end journals, really highlighting some key discoveries that we've made along the way around the origin of Q dot toxicity, the much better understanding of their fate if they go into the environment of the body. And also we've developed a completely novel model for understanding how to make nanoparticles in absence of solvent, which is something of tremendous commercialization opportunity for a better sustainable growth of, better sustainable synthesis of materials for energy applications. So with that, I'm going to pass on to Neil, who is going to present the other projects.
Great, thanks, Audrey. So our team is focused largely on 2 major case studies to go deeper into this topic. And the second major one that many of us have gotten involved with is to sort of promote the design, development, scale up of new solar cell technologies. So I think this is something that many of us have heard as sort of one of the most promising technologies towards renewables. And what we have here at McGill is excellent strengths in the engineering faculty, in chemistry, in physics, in terms of doing this. But what we've lacked are tangible ways for our researchers, especially our students, to get together. So that's what makes MSSI unique, is that we had now a mechanism, a funding mechanism, in a tangible way for folks in these diverse faculties who, again, are individually studying perovskites and solar cells and photovoltaics to come together. Another interesting layer we've been able to add to this is the assessment layers. So given that there is tremendous promise and interest in these solar cell technologies, and we're seeing their production and their applications ramp up tremendously, we also need to recognize that there are societal and hazardous material, societal costs and hazardous materials in these products. So we don't want to make mistakes. And that's where folks doing assessments like myself come into play. And we work very closely with the materials engineers and chemists on the team to, at the beginning of the project's life cycle, to properly and deeply evaluate all chemicals being used, materials, their processes, so on and so forth, to make recommendations to those doing design and development that the path you're going to go on is either one that is probably okay or not okay. So we want to trigger very early on in the R&D process potential problems that may emerge later on. Next slide, please.
Oh, sorry.
So again, just like the QDOTS project, the heart of this project are the HQP. And this just gives you a flavor of the different HQPs involved. It puts some faces to them and also gives you a sense of the diverse projects that they're working on here. And again, one strength of MSSI materials is that the heart of the work is through the HQP. And I know in speaking with many of these HQP on the screen, as well as other HQP, they're really getting a much richer experience by partnering with other trainees in other departments who they otherwise would not have any linkages with. Next slide. Great. So there are other projects that in MSSI materials we're able to get involved with. And in doing so, there's some lessons that we can learn as a broader community. The next few projects are ones that are largely, they're somewhat existing, but with additional resources that we were able to give through our program, we were able to help the efforts get to the next level, or to another level. So this project is led by Professor Goshal in civil engineering, which brings together a range of researchers and trainees listed on the bottom. And the idea here being is that there are a tremendous number of nanomaterials that exist in our urban environments, especially that are being released from paint and paper products. But we have very little knowledge of the impacts that these may have on the receiving environment. So what we're able to do here is to work very closely with colleagues in chemistry and engineering and to help better characterize the sort of the structure and function of these types of materials and to make judgments early on in the life cycle whether or not there might be potentially hazardous materials here and try to find ways to design out the hazardous materials while also promoting the beneficial aspects of these more superior paint and paper products. Next one. This project here is led by Professor Barbara Hales out of pharmacology, and it's a long-standing project that has had a tremendous impact nationally and internationally in terms of increasing our understanding of chemicals that are potentially disruptive to the endocrine system that may be found in a range of consumer products. And what makes this project particularly innovative and unique is that it brings together not only a group of very diverse researchers coming from many different diverse faculties and departments, but also the involvement of stakeholders. So it's a project that's largely driven by scientists and regulators at Health Canada and other stakeholder organizations, and it provides us as MSSI Materials a template on how to really see a project that's quite ripe and mature, that sort of approach the topic in a way that aligns with our vision, that again brings together multidisciplinary researchers, but also really deep stakeholder engagement. And in doing so, we're able to learn lessons from this team on how to take our discoveries within the academic laboratories and activities and make sure that they can be scaled up and truly make transformative impacts on other policy or practice. Next one. So in the end, we want to really move away from, I think a lot of us, we talk sustainability, and that's important and great, but how do we do it? So really working with our HQPs and trainees involved in the project, we're able to think very carefully about what are the very simple things that we can do as researchers and as research teams to move sort of just our talking of the topic into tangible action. So herein lies the idea of coming up with a very simple checklist, a very simple tool that we can use at the level of the researcher or the trainee or the project that makes sure that if you're going to embark upon doing some work that aims to yield and realize a sustainable material product, what are the basic core questions that need to ask from diverse disciplinary perspectives and also from the perspective of different stakeholders. So this is one thing that we aim to realize over the coming year. Next slide. Great, so then thinking back to Audrey's initial remarks at the beginning, the ultimate goal of our MSSI Materials group is to really change the way that we ourselves conduct research in the university, but also train the next generation. So the HQP are the building blocks. They sort of bring many of us in diverse faculties together so that we get a deeper and also more broader understanding of sort of the next wave of sustainable materials that are aimed to address some of the 21st century challenges. And in doing so, our team's been able to coalesce our activities around these HQP, but also diverse case studies. And these case studies are ones that we're able to use to better understand how different disciplinary groups can work together, how we can better engage with our stakeholders. And again, these case studies sort of sit on a continuum of relatively new studies to more advanced studies. Next slide, or maybe we're done.
Yeah.
Great. So again, the pillars of our group are as follows, just to reiterate what Audrey said before. When we started our project, we wanted to make sure that every single effort within our team brought multiple disciplinaries together, that we bring together researchers that are at the forefront of benign by design principles, so from the chemistry and engineering, physics perspectives, and really get them to link up with those doing environmental and societal assessments to make sure that we're truly able to do some work that's really transformative so that we can address these grand challenges that we're facing. Thank you.